incident manager for the PCERT team at Cisco, the ones that actually publish all the vulnerabilities regarding Cisco products and sometimes industry-wide events. But at any rate, I don't want to talk about only bad news here today. What I want to talk about is actually how the evolution of network security has happened, the last several years, and also how networks are still getting hacked and why. That is a long, long, long freaking list. So we're going to be here for 10 years if I come up with all the reasons that networks still get hacked, and even if you have firewalls and IPS and everything else in the world, you're still going to get owned. But I'm going to try to summarize of what actually has happened, actually even until recently, even until yesterday, regarding network security. But again, he said a strong word. He says, a lot of awesome presenters. I'm not an awesome presenter, so let me set your expectations back down. And the first thing that I do is actually I steal videos from other people, and then that will take like 2 or 3 minutes at a time from my presentation. So my presentation, the meat is like 2 seconds. But actually, I want to start with a video here that we actually had. It's a Cisco video, but it's not anything related to products. It's just actually to remind us about the actual evolution of network security or evolution of networks as a whole. Anyways, pretty music and everything. So these are not the Jedis you're coming from. Anyways, actually I have with me my replacement. My son is 16 years old. He already knows how to program in Python a little bit and C++. He's getting his CCNA certification. But today, I asked him, hey, do you know what is actually this? Let me see if this plays. And he goes like, I heard about it. I heard that thing before. I don't know what it is, right? So, yeah, 20, yeah, that was actually really good. So, back in the day, we considered the things to be complicated, right? So it was actually pretty damn easy, right? So networks have actually evolved from simple diagrams like this. They got bigger to something like that. But then they got a lot bigger, and they got a lot bigger, and they continue to grow, right? So then after they continue to grow, we started getting virtualized. Oh my God, virtualization. We started making companies to actually do this. We started making open source tools to do virtualization. We started the cloud, or the clouds, the private, the hybrid, the public, the whatever you want to call the cloud, right? And now you have the level of complexity rising just dramatically. And a lot of people were actually thinking, okay, so where is this gonna get us, right? So if I go back, so of course we have VMs in here. I don't have a laser pointer, but we have VMs on where traffic is actually passing and not leaving the same box. And last year when I was presenting here, I was actually talking about the complexity of the networks and how people actually are still getting or doing stupid things or are trying their best, but the security technologies are actually not helping. And even if we get some clever ways of protecting the network, it's still getting bypassed, right? So the complexity is actually one of the things, one of the reasons of why we get fails all over the place, right? At any rate, even outside of that, the problem that we have right now, it's even with that we have many clouds, is that we don't even define or we don't even know where data exists right now. We have the any-to-any problem, right? So I want to access my data from anywhere. I want to access it from any device. I want to access the data whenever time I want. And not only that, but the way that I want it, the data that I want, and the data can be stored in any place, in any cloud, in any data center, and you don't even know, right? So that complexity is adding a lot to the security dilemma right now. This is also actually adding a lot of, not only to security itself, but how things are actually changing very dramatically. So before, you needed a large corporation like, I don't know, I pick on mine because that's the only one that I can pick on is Cisco, right? So, they actually can create, these routers and switches, and they can create their own infrastructure to provide services. But right now, actually, you have two guys. You got a credit card, and you got cloud services, right? I mean, that's all you need. You just need a credit card. Actually, you don't even need two guys. You need one. You can outsource it. I mean, a guy outsourced his job to China, or India, or whatever. So that's all you need, right? Now, that's what people are facing right now, is that people are buying stuff and subscribing to services that are literally run by two guys and a credit card, which is actually, okay, I'm all for that. I wish I can be the guy with a credit card that can provide that service. But in some cases, they're probably not thinking so much about security, and then we're trusting them with specific services. But at any rate, they're probably actually kicking ass, and they're actually thinking more about security than other providers that are actually doing some more elaborate things. So I just wanted to bring things to the perspective before I actually jump more into the rest of the presentation. But now that I was talking about two guys and a credit card, that same dilemma or that same principle is actually being used right now by miscreants and other people, where I can rent a whole bunch of machines, I can create my cloud service, and I can also put fires on financial institutions, I can put fires on whatever. I can even attack, I can even use that landscape as an attack medium to cause some damage, right? So it's not only that the dilemma of things that complexity and now the flexibility of you running a service from anywhere or creating a cloud service, but it's actually able to use that. And I'm actually gonna go and touch on that a little bit later in the presentation, so I'm gonna table it for now. But what else is actually changing right now? Even jobs, even the things that are fundamentals for us, we need to make money, right? So we didn't have these jobs called social media marketers before. I mean, who will actually know that somebody is gonna be, a social media marketer, right? Who will actually know that you need a scientist to actually handle big data the way that we actually are handling right now, right? Who will actually know that you need a third-degree black belt in Security Ninja Cyber Warrior in order to actually protect the network, right? I mean, these jobs either are made up or actually that, you never thought that they will exist right now or in these ages. Now, we all have all these buzzwords, BYOD, SDN, cloud, and everything. This is not news to you. I'm actually gonna bring things into perspective. All those buzzwords are there, but if you think about it, the actual millennials, the young guys like Derek in here, 16 years old, or the 19-year-old, they actually want they want, they need that flexibility. I'm not saying that we're actually now a little bit old and slower, but they do need that flexibility, and they're asking for that flexibility, but they're not thinking so much about security in many cases, right? So that brings that dilemma also of actually, bringing your own device to wherever the hell you want to actually do, but at the same time, not even thinking the repercussions of that. So that's another thing that we're actually facing right now. But what else? We have this thing within the industry called the Internet of Everything. Oh, everything is actually going to be connected. It's actually taking place right now. And forget about the Cisco logo there for a second. I don't want to be this Cisco presentation, but it is true. I mean, over 99% of the things right now, they are not connected to something, right? Yet, right now, and I can show you some examples, we are trying to connect everything to a network, right? And this actually comes into a little bit bigger paradigms that we didn't have before. We had, people-to-people communication. We had people-to-machine communication, so you talk to machine. But now machines are actually talking to each other. We need to actually build processes around that, and to make sure that not only we understand the complexity in the network, but that we also understand the security ramifications of that. So it's the any-to-any problem that I mentioned before, on where anything can be talking to anything from anywhere. Data can be exchanged and it can be stored from any cloud in any data center at any way. Anyways, but this is actually not only a new trend, and I'm not only talking about these things that we know today, right? So mobile devices and everything, that's somewhat news, but it's all news. I'm also not talking about smart TVs and Rokus and Apple TVs and video games and Google glasses. I'm not actually talking about that. I'm talking about that now it is expected that things in the home will be connected, that sensors, of course, will be, we all know about SCADA, but things as fundamental as this one. How many of you know what this thing is, right? A lot of you, right? How many own it? See, there you go. That's it's called the Nest, right? It's actually pretty damn cool, right? So you can actually, based on your behavior in the house, you set your temperature, and it actually learns. It has some algorithms that actually learns your patterns and automatically calculates the heat or the AC of your house, right? That is connected, of course, to the network. How many of you know what the fuel is? How many use it? Oh, cool, he has it. So yeah, you can tell I don't use it that much, but but it's there. It is Nike. Nike came up with this, pretty cool band that it actually, keeps track of, your activity, daily activity, and it tells you actually in a graph, and you connects to the cloud, and it actually tells you if you're not doing that much of exercise like me, or if you're actually doing too much. How many of you knows what this is? Yeah, there you go. What do you use it for? For what? So how many of you don't know what that is? It's a Raspberry Pi. It's a $25, depending on the module or the model. It can cost you anything from $25 to like $50. And you can do whatever with it. As a matter of fact, right now I'm actually thinking about building, I have an Insteon at the house. It's a smart home technology that it transfers the information over the wires. If I was actually going to do it again, I would probably not do that anymore, but it's a long story. That thing, you can put Linux on it, you can put whatever operating system, that will, of course, will fit in there. We'll have an SD card, and have at it. The new Pony Express 2.0, 3.0, whatever you want to call it, right? So all these things are actually getting connected right now. And expected to be connected. I want them to be connected, right? Job security, I guess. But it becomes with a greater risk, and we have to keep that in mind, and I'll talk more about it later. How many of you know about SDN, what SDN stands for? What was that? How many of you are actually using it right now? So one. Nobody else? All right, so software-defined networks, basic definitions. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of things, and you cannot even read it. So But it's the ability, networks are becoming more programmable, right? They're actually becoming virtualized, right? Not only they're becoming more programmable and virtualized and flexible and things like that, but I think that actually there are two things. There are risks, of course, with security on those things, and also there are opportunities into the fact that you have more things that can talk to each other. You can deploy things faster. You can deploy the whole topology, within the matter of minutes that will take somebody, days, months, or years at sometimes. So it has a lot of potential. There's many technologies. I don't want to talk about the whole SDN architecture here, but there's open source technologies available, like OpenFlow, that is allowing people to to deploy this actually fairly rapidly within data centers. Now, one of the things is that SDN has a concept of a controller. The security implication with the controller is that failure, or if the controller gets compromised, of course, all bets are off because the rest of your virtual network will get compromised. That's actually something that people know, that people still, try to pay attention to, but I wonder how actually successful we're actually going to be protecting that infrastructure. Especially whenever you have, the application layer, all the applications in there, you have that control module here, and then all the the virtual infrastructure devices or network devices underneath. So you can actually cause a lot of damage. I'm not going to go into a lot of details of SDN as well, but this is just another visualization of how SDN actually works from the moment of orchestration all the way to the deployment of applications. But again, I actually talk about a whole bunch of buzzwords. A lot of them are actually not new to you. So you probably don't care about some of them. But what I want to highlight again is that right now, all this complexity, all these buzzwords and everything, the IT management is always asking, okay, is my network ready? Can I deploy SDN like the gentleman here? Can I become more virtualized? Can I actually have a hybrid cloud, or where I actually have a private cloud and I get some services outside? So all that complexity is actually coming into place into the IT management side of the house. But for us, the security staff, is how fast can I act so my network can be secure, correct? Now, this is actually coming from Cisco. He's a senior manager within the IT infrastructure, and we have plenty of security teams actually at Cisco, from the incident response side, of course, we sell products, from research side of the house and everything. So I can probably say that a lot of people are concerned about security within Cisco, right? Now, one of the things is, and this is actually a very well security-minded person, but it says, I understand that you need to keep the enterprise secure, but don't interfere with my user experience. I still need to maintain the user experience. I still want, so whenever my executives need to actually access the data, or even my intern wants to access the data, that I don't affect productivity. So do we lock it down or do we free it up? That's the main thing right now. These are just some statistics, actually true statistics of the deployment of, or the population of BYOD devices, in this case, iPhones, iPads, Blackberries, and everything within Cisco. And as you can see, it's actually, shifting. We have some internal support for iPhone more than the other ones, but it's actually shifting from the traditional BlackBerry that you can, of course, control a lot more, to things that you need more sophisticated capabilities like MDMs and things like that to be able to be successful. I'm not going to go into even to that detail because you probably know that already. But even so, we have complexity, we have all these technologies popping up, and we have the need to be competitive, to actually adopting these technologies, because actually I was at RSA 2 weeks ago, and I was in Australia last week presenting at another conference, and a guy comes to me in Australia and he said exactly the same thing that another person, completely unrelated, told me in RSA is that, I have this staff, and he's not a security guy, he's a data center guy. He goes like, I have this dilemma that I have some awesome data center guys, but I don't know if they're actually gonna have a job if they actually don't adapt into the things that are moving so fast right now. They're the awesome, guy that can deploy a server, that can deploy applications and everything, but things are moving so fast that they're actually falling behind. What do you recommend for that? I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm a security guy. I guess my job is also in the line here, but and then it made me, made me think a little bit. Actually, this was at RSA, and then I had the same thing, similar scenario in Australia, and it's true. I mean, the things are actually moving so fast that not only, of course, the jobs and everything are in play, is that how do we actually maintain security, right? How do we maintain that equilibrium, and how do we still, free it up? Now, if you go back and you say, okay, patch management for endpoint devices, patch management, has evolved fairly okay, right? So, I mean, you have automatic push to patches, if they have actually patches for things. You have, central management stations that actually can get asset repositories and everything. But for network infrastructure devices, not so much. Now the industry is actually trying to come up with ways on how we can actually do a lot of security automation right now. Into the fact that not only will tell me if a device, let's say a router, is running 12.4T and is vulnerable to 50 things, but if it's actually running the configuration, and for those of you that actually are very familiar with Cisco gear and any network infrastructure devices, there are more than just one way or one click to configure things like MPLS or BGP or IPsec. The complexity of there is huge. So that security automation is actually something that we're taking baby steps, of course. We probably can be a little bit more agile in there. But what I consider myself is that we do have some closed solutions on where we can assess the posture of the devices after I publish a security advisory. We have some standards that are actually emerging right now, like SCAP is one of them. As a matter of fact, last week was the IETF, and there were some proposals for a new working group, SACAM. As a matter of fact, we have some guys from MITRE here. And so things are actually evolving, but I consider that we are pretty much about here, right? We're still in that very early age or edge between the maturity or the evolution of security protocols or automation into that then we can actually claim some more victory. I'll share some of these. The things that actually we're doing at Cisco may be relevant, may not be relevant for you, but things that actually are not only at Cisco but everywhere is that we're now trying to create ways that machines can talk to machines and can adapt and can do assessments. But in order for me to do that, if I publish an advisory, let's say on an iOS router that a large service provider has to patch 900,000 devices, they can take years and months and everything, right? Now, if I can make that advisory machine readable, and that organization can actually take that advisory and slice it as they want, hopefully they're going to be a little bit more efficient. Now, what we're doing right now is actually we're publishing the advisories with OVO definitions. I'm not going to go into the whole detail of OVO, but it's a standard language actually developed or maintained by MITRE. And we're also doing CVRF. It's a way of that the actual advisory is machine readable right now. Why am I mentioning this? So the reason that I'm mentioning this is that we actually have to pay attention. Not only that now advisories are in XML format and it's machine readable, but what can actually we can automate successful, and what cannot we not automate that then will introduce some more security risk, and I explain why later. Now, before I do that, of course, I have another video, and I stole it too. But it brings things into perspective regarding the things that we saw last year. Okay. Pretty song.
So what is the lesson here? I guess we can continue to watch porn because there's malware there, and if people actually play with metrics, it looks cool with a good song, right? Now, actually, talking about metrics, I actually do a lot of security metrics and some analysis at what I do. And of course, people can actually argue, okay, so yeah, you have 2,000 something % increase in malware for Android, but yeah, in the beginning there was no Android, so of course you're gonna get a whole bunch of percentage, right? So the moral here is actually that it is increasing, right? Something that is actually near to my heart because I actually like the operating system a lot, and I use it a lot. But that risk is increasing, not only increasing, but I will not call it one of the bad guys, but the guys that actually are finding this malware, or they're creating it, or they're finding the issues, they're fairly successful right now. They're very, 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 very successful right now. I'm not gonna go into all the metrics in here since you actually saw it. We have a security report that I can make available later, but what I wanted to actually share with you is something that you all probably know. You watch the news. So if you go back and look at applications overall, we actually took a snapshots of many places on the internet, of course, and we saw the distribution of content types, and of course there's a whole bunch of applications there. Message is small, but we have text and everything. That's not that interesting. But if then we compare the content types and the actual vulnerabilities, and if you see here, of course, what is the number one thing? Java, right? I'm not gonna pick on Java, in there, but what I'm going at is that things are being repeated over and over and over and over. Even though we have new vulnerabilities every day in anything, again, I'm not picking only on Java. Cisco has its share. Everybody has its share. Attackers are actually, yeah, they're very clever right now, but they're also using, old stuff too, and I'll explain a little bit later. Now, the cool thing that I brought into perspective, actually, a friend of mine at Cisco, he shared this with a few of us, on where it's getting so out of control, and I don't want to only pick on Java, but it's getting so out of control that people are actually doing some nifty visualizations of the timeline of all the vulnerabilities in a specific time frame, and it's actually online. This is just a screenshot that I took today. I just finished the slides today. You can tell, and this is actually the link. And we actually have to even keep up with timelines like that. It's getting insane. But again. Are these new attacks, all attacks? Of course, they're actually both. There's different motives, of course. How many of you heard about Red October or Roca? Awesome. So that means that I'm doing at least some value add. Somebody hasn't heard about this. So Red October was a large-scale cyber-espionage campaign for 5 years that actually took place, and some researchers from Kaspersky, actually I talked to them a few times, found them. And as a matter of fact, I actually posted a blog post in here if you want to know more about it. They actually had malware associated in that campaign that were very similar to the behavior that we had in Doku and Flame and Gauss and all the other ones. But the thing that I want to other than, of course, it's actually attributed to nation state, and I'm also going to go into politics right now. But the things that was fairly clever whenever they did the decomposition of what actually took place and the vulnerabilities that were exploited, you see that there were a lot of vulnerabilities. This happened for 5 years, of course. They're building, and they were changing fairly quickly. But vulnerabilities all the way from 2009 that they're still successful, that they're still actually are successful obtaining things from it. Now, the reason that I got involved in this is because their claims, or their findings, not claims, they were actually findings. They said, hey, there's actually Cisco network infrastructure devices that were actually attacked, and device configurations were actually stolen from it. So of course, I got involved, and we thought that it was because of a vulnerability, and it wasn't. they gave me about 600 and something entries on a dictionary attack, very simple, from Cisco 123 to admin to anything else, but they're still successful. And actually, if you look at the success rate, it was like 90% for the weak passwords. So again, everybody knows this. There's a whole bunch of pen testers probably here in the room. So you know that that's actually the sweet spot that we're gonna get. But the clever part about this is that they're becoming a lot more clever, or they're becoming more agile into the fact that they are able to correlate information from other findings. In other words, out of that 600 and something passwords, I looked at probably, I don't know, 30 of them. They were really strong passwords that I consider strong. I mean, very long and everything. So I said, I told them, how the hell they're actually collecting this? I did more investigation, and because of vulnerabilities in other things, people storing passwords in an Excel spreadsheet, people storing host names in an Excel spreadsheet, they were actually able to correlate that that was actually an SNMP password for a network infrastructure device. This is the IP address. You gave him the whole thing. You gave him the password, the host name, the IP address, the topology. Might as well just give him $100 too, right? So that's the type of complexity. I will not say complexity, but they're clever, more clever right now, and they're being successful actually doing this. Now, remember the guy with the credit card here that rented a whole bunch of cloud services? Well, in this case, there's some of that. There's actually people that steal credit cards, and they're actually renting them and launching attacks. I'm not going to go into only the financial attacks, but I want to give you just some example. Is Operation Abigail, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It was a huge DDoS or volumetrics attacks that we actually have never seen before in the industry. And we have seen a lot of pretty nifty DDoS attacks before, but in this case, people either rented a combination of hacktivism and a combination of actually being compromised large data center and cloud providers to actually launch attacks against financial institutions, and it's still going on. I mean, it's still going to be, some of these things are actually still going on. Now, again, this is a volumetrics attacks. At some points, we actually saw about 100 gigs of traffic or more going into this. Of course, even if you're, I'm not going to mention names, but if you're a large corporation or financial institution, 100 gigs is gonna make a mark. It's gonna leave a mark, right? Now, the other thing is that providers, of course, are affected by this because they do centralized scrubbing, and they, in some cases, couldn't protect the customers. Of course, they're working on solutions and everything else right now. But I just want to give you an example of things that are old school, that you probably thought that were dead 2 years ago. Such DDoS, they don't do it anymore. Hacktivism only do the LOIC here and everything else. It's actually becoming a lot more prevalent. Now, the more clever part about it is that, of course, there were some machines that were rented, and they were rented with stolen credit card information. So what can I do to a bank or a financial institution to make sure that you don't report that your credit card is stolen? I'm going to DOS your IVR system too. So whenever you call the 800 number back on your credit card, you cannot even claim that your credit card is stolen. So they were actually doing that too. I mean, this is beyond just a DDoS. It's actually becoming very common that they're actually trying to hide other types of attack. Anyways, the other thing that is actually that we're seeing right now is also the weaponization of, or a better way of weaponizing evasion techniques for things like IPS or firewalls. How can I actually bypass an ASA, for example, right? So I'm only going to pick up my own stuff. That's actually something that we saw a big ramp last year. Not only that, but if you find an evasion technique that you can be successful launching an attack, that's actually something that I can also sell. Not only a malware I can sell, but I can sell a technique. It's like a patent, right? So you have a patent because of a new technology, but you also have patents for methodologies. They're actually selling methodologies too. At any rate, so do I have any good news? Why the hell did I come to CarolinaCon? Well, I usually don't have bad news, But whenever I do it at CarolinaCon. Well, I guess spam went down last year, I guess, if that counts for anything. The only thing is that criminals still use spam, and they actually have recipes that are still pretty good with spam, even though spam sucks. But it tastes pretty damn well whenever actually they are successful, and they make a lot of money out of it. One thing that actually happened last week, and I'm not going to pick on people that are here from any government institutions, but you know, this is how clever people are going. If I report a vulnerability, and as a matter of fact, we were looking at oval definitions to see if it has any repercussions for it, but now that I'm trying to automate these advisories and everything, right? Or if I, let's say I compromise, and don't start attacking right now Cisco.com, but let's say I compromise a vendor's website on where I say that a vulnerability is affected in version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it's not affected in that version, or you know, the version that is affected now changes, or I do that thing that nobody pays attention to, but then you don't patch, right? I mean, that's like a stretch. But in this case, actually, there was an outage in the MVD database. I don't, how many of you actually heard about that? Like pretty much the whole week is up again. But again, you know, it might be hacktivism and everything. I'm not even going to go to the details. I don't even know the details. But it's something that we didn't see before, right? And like, you know, yeah, we're going to bring it down, but what are the repercussions sometimes even for the security community for some of these acts, right? Now, there's a post in there. I'm not going to go into that, but Fred posted that post yesterday about it. So what I want to actually close is that, so all these things are evolving right now. We all know that complexity is increasing, the sophistications of the attacks actually increasing, this evolution of even the clever ways of protecting against security is also changing. But we want to avoid this thing where 5 or 10 years from now, we actually go back into the evolution and says, you know, screw this, we actually really messed it up, right? Let's go back in time. So how can we actually improve, right? One of the things is we need better collaboration and better coordination of things, right, as security communities. Not only as vendors, but as a community as a whole, right? I actually belong to an organization called ICASI. It's a nonprofit organization. Even Juniper is there. I shouldn't say even Juniper is there, but you know, Juniper is there. They have really good friends over there. IBM, Oracle, Amazon. Several of the big vendors are there. We actually share whenever there's an issue that affects, let's say, TCP or TLS. You know, we have better ways of communicating, and you know, hopefully to mitigate, you know, whatever the issue is. I was at a board meeting during RSA regarding, you know, this organization, and we were looking at CV details. You know, it's a nonprofit also, you know, putting details information on the internet, and we're trying to correlate if it was accurate or not. But at any rate, without going to the accuracy levels, it was pretty damn accurate, and we said, okay, the companies that are here, that are in this table, pretty much own about 75% of the CVs that were actually disclosed last year, or actually the last 5 years we were looking at, which is crazy, right? And I was like, how many times actually we really can say that we collaborated successfully, right? And you know, we were just thinking, if you actually have to think and actually count your fingers, that something is wrong, right? So we have to increase going out of the box. You know, again, last year I actually mentioned that it doesn't matter if you deploy AAA and you deploy IPS and firewall is still gonna get hacked if you don't, you know, visualize and keep what the state of the network and security is. But also, if you don't increase the ways that you collaborate, it's gonna deteriorate. So what I wanted to do, and it's kind of awkward because it's supposed to be a presentation, but I wanted to ask you guys, what else can we do as a community to increase not only collaboration, but increase the security posture of anything? What else do you think? What is actually top of mind for some of you right now? Come on. I know it's job security, but it has to be something. I'm sorry? Yeah. Actually, so the comment was, don't crucify people that find the vulnerabilities, and that's actually absolutely true, right? Actually, the first step is pay attention to the freaking people that are trying to report to you and not sell the vulnerability in the underground community, and actually at least give them credit, right? So I'm not gonna go into the financial rewards and everything because that's a topic for another year, but that's actually absolutely true. Now, one thing that is very one of the reasons for probably that, we're actually seeing a lot in the industry, not only at Cisco, we're seeing a lot, we get reports, actually we get emails every day on security issues at PCERT, right? So, I mean, the list is pretty damn long. We actually, it's so long that we actually dedicate a person just to read emails a week, and we rotate them, the poor guys, right? Just so, he can get all the reports. And, we cover all the 1,200, or, I'm just pulling that up number off my behind, but, hundreds of products that we actually have at Cisco. We get all these emails. And we get a lot of researchers, of course, that come in, and presents the vulnerability, and we work with them. And actually, I can tell you that the research community is pretty awesome, especially whenever it comes to network devices. Probably, we still need the network to do other things. But what we're seeing right now, instead of actually a lot of researchers still coming in, but a lot of brokers as well. And then I ask, why do we get these brokers? It's because, well, sometimes we're not as successful whenever we send the reports to you. So we gave up. We give it to brokers, and if they actually want to use it or want to do anything, and then we're getting a lot of actually reports from brokers, and I'm like, why is this happening? I mean, and as an industry as a whole, we are not being that consistent. So that's actually a very, very, very good observation. What else do you think? Don't get Omar to present at CarolinaCon anymore?
They have more resilience from hardware and software manufacturers, so that if there is a security problem, they're more resilient to attack, and also demand that they work to eliminate those vulnerabilities in the first place.
Yeah.
Hold your manufacturer to feet to the fire so that they aren't rushing stuff out without proper testing.
Yep. So that's actually one thing that, and again, I only live and breathe, of course, my employer, but a lot of people are actually trying to develop these, security development life cycles, and they're actually investing a lot of money into it, and it's just because of that, right? Now, I guess I talked a lot today. I got 2 videos in there, so at least I minimized my talking. But I really appreciate your time today. Hopefully this actually was useful. And thanks again for having me here.